everyone, and welcome to Drop Frames Week 53. Co, why'd you do that? You scared the shit out of me when you turned your camera on and off right at the end. Every time, man.
Everything's fine. Everything's good.
You got excited. You got super excited.
Every time he does it, I'm just it draws right to the eye. It's bad.
I'm not gonna move.
Yeah, just don't move, Max. Just don't move.
Don't move at all.
You're probably recognizing two new faces. Well, two faces you should recognize, but two new faces here on Drop Frames. Zeke's currently in Florida, sweating his ass off, and he's at the Extra Life something or other. What is that thing that he's at? Do you guys know the official thing?
The Extra Life thing.
It's the Extra Life thing. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing down there. We'll have to have him report on it next week. But
I hear it's charity.
Probably charity based. Yeah.
You know, I can add that confidently. I think it's
saving lives.
Yeah. Probably charity based. So he'll be back next week. But in his place, we've got Elohim coming through this week. How's it going, Elo?
Zeke 2.0. Hey guys, what's going on? Hope you guys are doing well out there in the space. Shouldn't Elo be sleeping? No, screw you guys. I don't sleep. I mean, I'm Zeke. Yeah, Zekeconia. Oh man, jokes. I'm so funny.
Zeke, is that you? Wow.
Foar or whatever the fuck that is. I don't know.
How do you make it back so fast?
Oh man, I'm the
fast.
backyard wrestler. I wish. Oh, my name's Zeke.
You got to do that all show. 3 hours.
Now everyone in the chat that wants to see Zeke has felt like they've got their quota for the day.
There you go.
Oh, but wait, I got something else funny to say. Let me run down the aisles. You know, it started to sound like Nixon or something.
Vixen, what?
Not Nixon. Was it Nixon?
No, this thing. Yeah,
That's That's pretty.
Yeah,
that's pretty much
Nixon.
it.
That's Nixon.
Anyways,
Well, good. Our guest this week is none other than Maximilian Dude here on Twitch. We're just gonna call you Max.
So nervous to be on a stream.
Really?
I'm not lying.
Why is
Super
that?
nervous. Like it's really weird. I'm in my total comfort zone when there's my own chat room and everything. And now super nervous. So go ahead. It's fine. We can.
your audio's all screwed. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, you made me hella nervous. Oh dude,
That's how to get to a streamer right away.
my
That's how to
hand
fuck with
went
them.
over to the mixer so fast. So I was like, "What? I'll fix it."
No, it's cool. It's cool. I'm just screwing with you because I'm vulnerable.
There you go. There you go. I guess we can go ahead and start. Max, why don't you just give a brief introduction on who you are, how you got started in the YouTube and Twitch world, and what you're all about for people that have never seen you before for some stupid fucking reason.
So mostly fighting games. I've been able to play quite a few things over the past year or so. Well, I've tried to stream at least 5 days a week. Nothing too crazy, but I've been making YouTube videos since 2007, 2008. And started making like a lot around 2010. So there's a good archive of about 3,000 to 3,500 videos now, and made a lot of films and short movies, and have, as the process, worked on like 8 different Capcom games, and now I'm working on Killer Instinct on its latest story mode, and Killer Instinct Season 3 trailers. And I'm still trying to stream. I really want to keep that going because there's a lot of awesome fighting games that are out there right now, especially some that are on the horizon too. So that's pretty much it at the moment.
What I was asking you this before. What is your I guess official title or relationship with Killer Instinct?
Official title.
Is there one? Or are you just kind of like, hey, I like Killer Instinct?
I think in the credits it's listed as story mode cinematics director. Okay. Although I am the editor, I am the capture artist. I don't want to call it an artist. I record the video game and then I piece it all together in editing with the audio and stuff. But that's technically it. And then I've also made almost all the trailers for KI, which is probably some of the most fun stuff I've ever had the chance to do. And it's each time I finish one, it's like a sigh of relief, and I'm like, can't believe I made that trailer like a year and a half ago or something like that.
How long is it? Like, what's the process for that? Like, when you submit it, how long till it actually goes live?
Oh, like a month. Like it's like the normal video game, like regular development process where like everything's been done on the game for like 2 months, 3 months or so, and it's got to go through like a submissions application. And the same thing with the trailer, where all of a sudden it's in a route through about 15 different heads, and they have to give their input, and you have to make everybody very happy while keeping your original vision and following the script and everything like that. And it's a very fun process because it's a super visual process, and I love build up, and I like slow build up and immediate hype. So it's been an amazing experience.
Gotcha. You just released. Is it okay if I show the Tusk teaser?
Yeah, you can. That's fine.
This just went up
That
like what?
just came out.
Yeah, like 5 or I think like 10 minutes ago, right before we went live with the
Yeah.
show.
You made this trailer?
I made everything in the trailer. I handmade the graphics. I'm just kidding.
That's all it is. It's a teaser through and through.
That was just a teaser that actually went at the end of the latest trailer that came out for KI, because Arbiter from Halo is now a character in Killer Instinct or KI season 3.
Really?
And yeah, that was a pretty big deal. They should get a few people into playing fighting games, which is kind of a hard natural progression for shooters or people that play shooters. And the Tusk teaser just went at the end of it, so pretty excited.
Yeah,
That's
here's
awesome.
the
Man.
Arbiter
I had
trailer.
no idea you had that much stuff to do with it. That's fantastic.
Were you responsible for this as well? The Arbiter trailer?
Say that one more time.
Were you responsible for this Arbiter trailer?
Yes, yeah, I made this one too.
Your attention to detail in the graphics is incredible.
What was it?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I had no idea.
I had no idea
I had no idea that you were this like involved.
I don't like to flaunt it until somebody asks me, and then I'll give you like a 5-minute, like, yeah, look at all this crazy stuff I can do. But no, it's been an amazing experience. The Microsoft guys have been super awesome about being like outgoing and forthcoming, and they gave me the chance to actually like do these types of trailers and stuff like that. And we essentially just proved that we could do it within the game engine, because with fighting games, not many people realize that there's a lot of liberties that they don't take with the camera in fighting games, because you see most fighting games, unless they're 3D, from the 2D angle, like character. And if it's a 2D fighting game, there's no reason to push the camera around, because you're going to see a lot of unwanted stuff. And I know what unwanted stuff they wouldn't want to show, because I'm already familiar with the engine of the game.
Right.
And we actually take some pretty crazy liberties with the camera during this, so we can do some cinematic stuff, and it's become like second nature moving the camera around. Funny note, on all these trailers and where the camera is positioned, it's all controlled by like an Xbox 360 controller.
Really?
So it's like very small muscle movements I have to do to slowly pan.
That sounds
around.
like a fucking nightmare.
Wait a second.
It is
I thought this
very
was all
difficult.
coded panning. You're doing that manually?
It's all manually done with a literal controller, where there was like, okay, can somebody like program in this
that.
controller? And they did it for me. So I just,
oh my god.
We had to do that stuff at MLG when we would do trailers, and I fucking hated it. So
it's like-
kudos
yeah,
to
and
you
that's
for being able to do that on this level.
most trailers are actually done that way for games, like especially shooters, where it's like everyone's got to run over here, and then we're gonna move the camera this way. And
Right.
yeah, it's all done. It's all done in the engine of the game, which is kind of like a testament to the game itself. So yeah, I'm really glad we get to do that, or else it'd be kind of a boring trailer.
Do you do all this out of your house, or do you have a studio set up somewhere?
The first few trailers, like about a year and a half ago, I would have to travel out to when the Double Helix guys that initially made the game, or I'd have to go out to Chicago for Iron Galaxy.
Yeah.
And I actually had to go out there 2 or 3 times to
They're doing season 3, right?
They are doing season 3, yeah. And they recently did this crazy graphics overhaul in the game. Like the stages look completely different. It's nuts for the Windows 10 release.
Right.
And I've had to go out there several times for story mode purposes, because I do all the story mode cinematics and the a few trailers I had to do out there. But recently, like, I'm an in-house developer now, so like many other contract workers that work on KI, I work out of home, so I'm connected to the network, and we just we get stuff done fast that way.
Gotcha.
It's like behind the scenes, man.
Yeah.
I know, dude.
It's like when you see like the behind the scenes, like Star Wars, when they've got like the models, the 3D models and stuff, and they're it's
very
like,
similar.
you see this wonderful display once it's all finished, and then you find out people are behind the scenes holding Xbox controllers ever so slightly at a certain
Ever so, I would love to record myself. The funniest thing I always say about games now, like once you actually start getting into a little bit of development and see how they work, video games are literally like going on a ride at Disneyland, like one of those rides with a bunch of characters and stuff everywhere, where if you all of a sudden just moved yourself out of the ride's direction just a little bit, you're going to see things you really don't want to see.
Sure.
But as long as you're controlled and on that track, it's awesome. So really similar.
After all, it's a small world. After all,
Exactly. That's exactly it.
It just comes out of nowhere. You're like, wow, I just heard that audio from a different angle. That was
Whoa.
whoa, just a smidge off.
Have you had any of the big E3 trailers premiere or anything like that?
The only no, the really old Killer Instinct trailers, which was like the big premiere, that was not me. That was done really early in KI's development.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's anything that's actually been directly at E3 or We tried to get a trailer, and this is one that I actually had to travel to Iron Galaxy in Chicago to get done immediately, so that we can get like Phil Spencer to pass on it, to actually give his okay, all these people, so we can actually make E3. And it ended up, they changed their stage presentation at like the last minute. So me going out there and literally making this trailer, and I swear, like I was at the office for like 16 hours, and then I would just sleep for 3 hours and then run back to the office to make the trailer. It didn't make the show.
Oh man.
And it was like, you know what? That's fine. We still released it on the internet anyway.
Well, it's not. I mean, that sucks. Is basically
It did. It was like
that sucks.
whatever.
Yeah, you could have had the big E3 reveal, which is probably a check mark.
You're so tired at that point. You're just glad it's done.
Yeah, I'm sure. I had no idea. That's really fucking cool that you are involved in all.
Thank you.
I guess the most recent ones are
true.
the most recent ones are Killer Instinct. Have you done anything else? Past couple years besides that?
Not direct trailers, but I did indirect like video stuff, like promotional for like 8 different Capcom games, from Street Fighter Cross Tekken to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Marvel Origins, Darkstalkers Resurrection, DuckTales, Strider. I did a full behind the scenes like documentary on Strider because it's one of my favorite characters ever. And a lot of the Capcom guys like know me as like I'm a huge Capcom hardcore guy, and they got me a lot of gigs that I would love to do. Like I've never been able to or I've never taken a gig that I didn't want to do. And it's been amazing because I'm like, I would have done that anyway. Thank you so much for paying me. Like that is really nice of you.
Yeah, that's a good place to be, where you can
that's a great place
enjoy
to be.
everything that you're doing on that level.
I hope you're not listening.
Yeah, let's hope none of those guys are tuning into this right now, because I really like doing that.
Sure.
Can I ask a question? Because I don't get to talk to a lot of fighter players anymore. See, even me saying that, I sound like I'm a nerd.
You fighter guys.
Fighter players. Like an old person, like I'm getting on the goggle. I'm gonna goggle it. What? Okay, so I used to play like Marvel vs. Capcom back in the day. Like most of the fighting games I played have been in arcade, like Tekken and all this stuff. Some I've taken.
Yeah.
What? Here's the thing that gets me about fighting games is that like they never seem to like diverge much, right? There's never like a lot of room for change. There's a little room for change, like counters and stuff like that, but it always kind of seems so. I don't know. It seems to me, and I'm not hating on your thing that you love.
They play safe.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they play it real safe. So, is there a reason that they do that? And explain, maybe explain a little bit to me.
There's a pretty good reason. Like most of the time, the mechanics don't get a little too crazy. Like for example, like Ultimate Marvel 3 is a game that like compared to Marvel vs. Capcom 1, that gets a little crazy. And sometimes when they get a little too crazy, developers get pretty worried about balance issues, where they're like, if we have this many characters doing this many crazy system mechanics, and if each character is unique enough, how do we balance that like appropriately? Because nowadays fighting game balance has become a huge focus between like the Tekken titles, or the newer Tekken titles, to Street Fighter and Killer Instinct and like Skullgirls and everything. The developers are actively listening, and I'm pretty sure that there's some games that take a little bit of risks. I think in terms of some mechanics, but like Street Fighter 5 is a great example of a fighting game that plays it really safe. It seems that there were some early screenshots that came out, especially visually, of what Street Fighter 5 could have looked like, and it looked like some futuristic Virtua Fighter Tekken game. And I was like, oh, that looks awesome. And they literally went with this thing that looked very much like Street Fighter 4, because Street Fighter 4 is successful. We got to play it safe. And I think you're right. It does say that visually and gameplay wise for a lot of games, but they try some different things. Like Guilty Gear did a completely different graphics engine for Guilty Gear Xrd.
Right, and it was fucking amazing. If you've never seen,
if you've
never seen that quick little, like, I don't even know what Max, you probably know the better way to say it, but like the quick cut to the edge, and then it goes fucking like, it's one of the best looking things of last year.
Super cinematic camera angles. Like those guys really know where to stick a camera to make stuff.
Let me see if I can try to find something.
And Guilty Gear Xrd is a great example, where there was a completely different graphics engine, and they were trying to make characters look identical to anime. And there's been a lot of stuff that's like looked good with cell shading over the years, but what these guys did, and it's a relatively small development team, is bar none amazing. Guilty Gear Xrd is one of the most beautiful fighting games ever to existed, and not many people bought it, which is a travesty. because it's available on PC now. Please go buy it, guys. This game is cheap and it's incredible looking.
So
Why do you think people aren't buying it?
It's anime as hell.
this is very anime. Like
a very specific audience. It's a legacy fighter. Like Guilty Gear's been around since like the early 2000s. It started on PlayStation, was big on the Dreamcast, and then went to PlayStation 2. So it's got a lot of legacy characters, which is the most important thing in fighting games. But for some reason, only really hardcore guys kind of know about Guilty Gear. So it doesn't sell amazing, but it deserves all the praise it can get because playing this game is incredibly fun. And it looks amazing too.
So what do you think a old school series like Street Fighter would have over Guilty Gear in terms of like penetration of the market and things like why is Street Fighter so much more successful? Is it because of just the graphic style, or is there more?
is it really just the name? Like
it's the name,
Street
it's
Fighter.
the brand and the characters.
Yeah.
It's Ken and Ryu. It's Blanca and Sagat, and then those characters are missing now, which is why a lot of people are saying the roster is kind of lacking. So Street Fighter 5 is getting a little bit of criticism because of its roster choices. They chose to take some interesting characters from the series that some people really wanted to see that were in Street Fighter 4 and like every Street Fighter before, and they're not in Street Fighter 5 now. But those characters actually, the ones that are there are the ones that have that huge mass market appeal. Everyone knows who Ken and Ryu are. Like Street Fighter has been the de facto standard of fighting games for like over 20 years. That's why Street Fighter 5 has that recognition, and I don't think it's going to change. I think they're really trying to hit that with this version of the game.
What causes some heroes or some characters to make it and to the next iteration and some don't? Is there ever like a story issue that this person is
no? Oh god, Street Fighter story is everywhere and it makes no sense.
Okay, I see. That's what I don't know. So there's
Street Fighter. The Street Fighter 3 is basically the last game story wise, correct? Max?
Yes, like Ken and Ryu are like 40-year-old
Bison's
dudes.
dead.
Well, like I used to watch like the old school and like I guess it's like late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. It was like an anime, like Street Fighter anime, and I remember
2V. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, wow, they're actually trying to make a narrative out of this. Before it was just we flew around to different countries and beat up on other people.
I was watching JP play Street Fighter 5. They've just given up on the story. It's like the two characters see each other. And it's like, hey, I saw you do this thing. Yeah, well, I work for this guy. Well, screw you.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's kind of just the story. The story is building up to a big cinematic story mode that is coming in June because the game is like released fairly bare bones, and it's taking a small update path where you're going to get all those updates for free, which is nice, which is probably the best way they can do it. But I do agree, like there's only a couple of story sequences between all 16 characters between their very brief story mode like moments that are just quite literally drawings.
Yeah,
like
this. It looks like bad fan art. It looks like bad fan art.
This artist here, I'm going to divulge really quick. This artist is one of the Japanese gods of video game art.
Now I feel like an asshole.
No, don't feel like an asshole because I don't know what happened to his style. His name is Bengus. He actually did the art for some of the original Street Fighter games and designed some really old characters. He did the art for Marvel vs. Capcom. He's done so much stuff and it looks incredible. And you could tell he was obviously pretty rushed with Street Fighter 5 and had to pump these out really quick.
Why do you think that fighting games, like it just seems like across the board, they're not really as worried about the narrative. It's like a lot of other genres want to create a world for you and want to, give you, the aspects and the lore and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is it just because of the style? Is it just I never see a big emphasis on story. I mean, sometimes you do. Like Tekken has that weird like
Mortal Kombat has a good story element.
Probably best example.
And I kind of like that fighting game, but the story really killed it for me, and I don't really play it.
Why isn't that a conversation? It's like a conversation with a lot of other genres. Why not this one? Is what I'm asking.
It is, and in all honesty, Mortal Kombat is the current reigning king of fighting game like sales over the past many iterations. Like MK games sell a ton.
MKX sold a fuck ton, right?
Dude, that game, people realize people are like Mortal Kombat is dead. I'm like, that game sold like 30 million units. Not that much, but
I think it was around like 10.
Quite a bit.
Let me look.
And Kombat's been through a lot of shit too,
and they did, and they put so much stuff into MKX, and that NetherRealm are the guys that focus on story, like Injustice, which was the DC fighting game, huge story mode, all this stuff that actually goes over the DC characters and the Injustice lore, which is where Superman becomes an asshole.
Right. And, that was all. I played it just for the storyline.
And it's fun. It's super fun. And the same thing for Mortal Kombat 9. The same thing for Mortal Kombat 10. it's really important to have these things, because what it does, it brings in the casual market. And I just made a video about this.
I watched it. Yeah,
these guys
watching that earlier.
might just play this thing just for the story, or they might pick it up just to see like fatalities and stuff like that. Hardcore guys like hate that, and that's like the bane of fighting game community stuff, is to get them to invest from the game that they just sort of play and put on the shelf to actually, you know, playing competitively or going online and learning how to play the game. And that's what I want too, because I think if you actually understand how to play like a fighting game and learn its mechanics and find somebody to spar with and just enjoy it, it's the most incredible genre of games, which is why I love it so much. But some people just don't want to do that at all. They just want to play the game and then put it on a shelf. And if their friends come over, hey, we can jam on it every once in a while, unlock some characters, things like that.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing, because that guarantees the success of future fighting games. Like the casual guys that do that make it so that they can actually make more of these things down the line, instead of just appealing to hardcore dudes. So it's a really important market that gets kind of overshadowed by the big competitive esports scenes, but it's so important, man. Like
Right.
that means that there can be a Street Fighter 6. That means that there can actually be a new Capcom fighting game. They might make another Power Stone because this one was really successful, or I don't know. It all depends on how many people even buy the game to pretty much give a crap about it at its launch, which is the most important time for a fighting game.
That's kind of what.
So
Go ahead, because I think we all have a bunch of questions, and that's the main reason
dude,
we
this
brought
is
you
great.
on.
Yeah,
Is
I
to
love
talk
this.
about this. Yeah.
I don't talk to people who play fighters enough. Like I just don't know
Well,
enough.
to be honest, it's a very hard, and this will probably come out the wrong way, but it's a very hard crowd to like get in and just have a normal conversation, because the three of us were casuals, and
Yeah.
That's dude, and this is the reason why I have 10,000 people watching me play Street Fighter 5. Like, do not
Right.
worry at all. You guys are not alone.
yeah, I think to Max's credit, he's one of the few people that's been embedded in the FGC for so long, but he doesn't seem like he has. Like you don't seem like you're one of the
He's not
elitist people.
about it.
Yeah,
He
you're
doesn't-
just a normal guy.
Most of the people we talk to about this kind of stuff is like, oh, you don't know this stuff? Well, I'm gonna go talk to someone that does.
Right,
But
right.
real quick, like two quick questions about Mortal Kombat before we move on from there, Max.
Okay.
Maybe you can shed some light on this. What the hell happened to the Mortal Kombat 10 PC stuff? First of all,
I'm assuming the same thing that happened to every other WB game that's getting a PC port lately, where they just WB was like, you got 3 months, good luck. And it's like, really? Like, or something crazy like that. Cause that's been what's been like talked about over the Batman port.
Right.
And other things that have happened. Like Injustice and MK9 were pretty decent PC ports, but they came way after the fact. And that was a little while ago. And WB Games has gone through, I think, some managerial kind of like repositioning. And I think that I don't even know if it was directly NetherRealm, because I'm not even too sure if they're the ones that made the PC version. So I'm not too sure, man. They pretty much dropped support on it completely. As soon as they announced that MKX was not going to get the PS3 and Xbox 360 version, and I'm like, dude, there's no way the PC version's going to be getting any more updates. There's no way, because they don't. Something definitely went downhill, because it's obvious that the main developers, NetherRealm, are working on the Xbox One and PS4 versions, and they're probably outsourcing the other ones. I'm not entirely too sure about that.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was going to relate to the fact that I kind of dropped off of fighting games. Back when I was like early teens, I had a PlayStation, whatever, and I used to play a lot of fighting games then. Like
Tekken 3, yeah.
Oh yeah, man, Tekken. Me and my buddy go. Oh my god, go back and forth. I'm sure you got plenty of stories too. So the thing is that like I think at some point in my teen years I moved to PC gaming, and I think that's where the split happened. Where I just
And it's a wasteland, yeah.
Like I totally lost focus of fighting games after I got a PC that could run anything fairly decent.
Well, and it's true, because like there hasn't been many fighting games on PC over the past few years, and this in the last year or so have been the big ones where PC ports of fighting games are actually happening. Like the game I'm working on, it was an Xbox One exclusive game that came out and was pretty much a system seller for a lot of people, and the Xbox One is still my killer instinct.
It was the best game at Xbox One launch. Like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like toot its horn or anything, and I actually hate like talking about KI ever since I started working on it, but it was, and there's really not many other games on Xbox One that I do play, and it's pretty much been my KI machine, and now it's getting a PC port. So similar with other Xbox games, I think that are getting PC versions. It's a really good thing, but it's a great thing for fighting games, because that game has been stifled by the fact that it's been an Xbox One exclusive for quite some time. and it's not a bad thing. Like, but the biggest issue with the Xbox One is that it released at a more expensive price with less good hardware.
Is it Windows 10 only, or is it Windows?
I think it is Windows 10 only, so it's still being held on. You know, they're
starting to do a lot of that now with games that are Xbox One exclusive. I think Quantum Break is also going to be Win 10 only, and
there's a lot of Windows.
You're going to start to see it more and more frequently. Yeah. They're really pushing Windows 10 as hard as possible in almost all facets of Windows experience. So it sucks.
So that's one thing that you gotta have or deal with. But it's a really good thing for fighting games in general, because with this niche kind of a genre, having like a console exclusive fighting game is pretty rough. And the fact that Killer Instinct managed to do good enough through its like 2 seasons, and now there's going to be a third. The game's been going on for like 2.5 years almost. Is super good.
It's pretty insane to think about that, actually.
Yeah, it's a budget ass Xbox Live arcade $20 game.
It's free to play. Even you can download it for free, right? Yeah.
So I mean, that's the only thing we're really hoping for right now is that Tekken 7, when it eventually does drop, does have a PC version. That'd be like a new age of PC fighters where it's like cross play with PlayStation. That would be incredible.
Is that PS4?
That would be awesome.
It's confirmed PS4, Xbox One, and
so I mean, it could port it somewhat easy.
Yeah, there's very little information about Tekken 7, but that game looks awesome. Like, dude, I haven't been interested in Tekken for quite some time, and I've tried to get into like Tekken 6 and Tekken Tag 2. Right. Tekken 7 looks really fun. Like all the characters, the combos. Akuma is in it, which is insane.
I saw that announcement at that tournament like a month or two ago.
It's beautiful. I feel that with the characters like Akuma, and this has been really specific for fighting games, like Akuma in Tekken. You got like Cloud in Smash Brothers, Bayonetta in Smash Brothers. It seems that there's been this huge influx of like the reaction to get people to react big and hard, because that creates a natural virality where people are like, oh, super happy about this. And they put up reaction videos and all this crazy stuff. Like ever since Final Fantasy VII got announced at E3, where like the huge mega reaction of the internet was so big and profound. And then like Shenmue 3, like everyone spoke up really hard about this old crap that, you know, a lot of new board members don't think anybody should care about, but they really do.
Right. And
now they're doing like crazy guest characters in fighting games that wouldn't make any sense. And it's like, how the hell is Cloud in a Smash Brothers game? He's a PlayStation character. Things are happening that are actually, I feel, being designed to make people react big. And that's actually a really good thing, because if developers are out there trying to make us super excited about something so that we will cause natural virality, that's a good thing, man. Like, please make ridiculous things happen that should never happen, because
it's kind of the entire, and this kind of, I think, harkens to another issue in video games in general. Like, new things in video games, just like new things in any media, are they're very hard to sell, right? Because you're unsure of, am I going to really like this new main character that they just introduced? So if you throw like, hey guys, remember Cloud? He's pretty cool, right? We're going to have him in our fighting game. Like, they automatically know what that character is and what he's about, and can immediately be excited, like you're saying. And I feel like it makes sense, but it also, like, I'm the type of guy that just wants to see the new stuff. So why a lot of people are saying like Street Fighter V's roster is not that good, I'm kind of excited just to see the new people. Like, I think Fang's one of the fucking weirdest characters I've ever seen in a fighting game, but I want to see him on like a professional circuit. Apparently he's low tier, apparently, so you're not going to see that right now.
He's like one of the more difficult characters to actually be good with. That's why.
Okay. Yeah, but I just want to see new stuff. Go ahead.
On this note, and it's kind of, I'm glad the conversation went this way, because this is the second question I had earlier. And I'm very curious about this, Max, because you definitely have a lot of history in the fighting field, and I've kind of wanted the perspective on this. Like, let's take a game like Mortal Kombat 10. Okay. And I don't remember the name of the actual moves, the X-ray moves, where it would show bones breaking and the whole fight would stop.
Right.
I kind of always saw that as fan servicey. Like, they're just trying to show off something big and have blood and gore. And
absolutely.
I felt like it was kind of going away from the fighting game. And whenever I played it, I was always kind of going, you know, if I really cared about these, like, this kind of stuff would kind of piss me off a little bit. Like, they're going away from the fighting game and bringing in more of the Hollywood. And they're kind of going away from what the games really are about in a lot of ways. You know, the technical and the skill, and just kind of putting on flashing lights and gore and stuff. What do you guys think about stuff like that when they get implemented? Is it good? Does it help?
That's a great. It's actually, so it's a good thing, specifically because fighting games need to look good. Like, fighting games have always been like this benchmark of graphics for like a lot of systems. Like, a system would launch with a fighting game over the past many years, like going back to the SNES and stuff like that. And there has to be some sort of visual appeal, because you can push graphics in fighting games a little bit more than some other games in certain regards. And MKX is an amazing looking fighting game, probably the best one on the market right now for like a semi-realistic style. They do a really good job. So they're going to try to like get ridiculous with the things that they can actually show off between like fatalities and X-rays. And the funniest thing about what you mentioned is that it kind of takes away the gameplay. X-rays in higher competitive play in Mortal Kombat aren't really used because it's not an efficient way of using meter. Like they're really used as this big invincible thing that a new guy can kind of throw out every once in a while. And only very few characters can actually use an X-ray effectively because you get the same damage by using 1 bar and an X-ray costs 3 bars of meter. So they've kind of like designed it in a way where it's this total thing where casual people are just going to mash R2 and L2 and they're going to get this sweet looking crack.
Yeah, no,
which is great. You need to feel like you're doing something awesome in a fighting game. That's the most important
thing. It's the
thing.
water cooler situation. Like,
cool stuff.
You want to talk about Sonya fucking busting someone's balls at the water cooler because it's cool to see, right?
Yeah,
like the casuals love seeing
exactly
that shit.
It. Like you want the shock. The MKX had some of the greatest shock value I've seen in a fighting game.
Oh yeah.
And the craziest thing is that it's 2000. It was 2015, and we were getting shock value from nut busting and like ridiculous gut pulling, and I was like, this game is actually appealing to people somehow through gore, and I don't feel that's been in fighting games for a very long time.
Right.
So
see, that's really interesting to hear that though, because it's almost become like noob bait. So it's like the people that would really care about that stuff would do it, but anyone that is experienced enough to understand the systems would avoid it. So that's
and the funny thing is that I like, even as fighting game players, like that stuff still is appealing to people that are like super hardcore with the genres. Like just seeing things look cool. Like in my opinion, fighting games are awesome because I want to look for the coolest looking thing that I could possibly do with a character. And if there's some super sick combo that involves an X-ray, then
what? I've never.
He
just sucked his entrails out. I've never seen Ermac do this, but is this new?
It's disgusting.
This is like one of the best ones.
I've never seen. I've seen almost every single fatality. I thought I've never seen that one.
I'm so desensitized to this stuff now. It's ridiculous.
I was never bothered by the over the top. But you know, like most people, like there was a criticism, right? Somebody would like break their bones and then snap their neck.
Right.
Yeah, and they're just like, all right, let's keep fighting. You know,
I remember.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember as a kid where like politicians were fucking going crazy over Mortal Kombat 2 in theaters, and like
that's
it was ridiculous.
Just about to say, though, JP. Like Mortal Kombat is one of the few genres that I'm like totally okay with that, because that's all they built themselves on this. Like
it's the only one that does it. The funniest thing, it's the only fighting game that does it, and I still think that Mortal Kombat, even in 2015, can sell through its gore and fatality appeal, which is ridiculous because it's 2015 and they somehow managed to make it happen.
There's been 10 games and they've sold it every game.
Dude, in every game. And the craziest thing is like, what are they going to do for Mortal Kombat 11? Is it going to be like 3D and smell-o-vision?
It's going to be like Surgeon Simulator, except with more like violence.
What can they do? Like, and I'm going to leave it to Ed Boon and the designers and the art guys at MK. Those guys are super, super creative with this stuff. And I want to be shocked. Like, that's what I want. I want to be shocked all over again.
The only thing I want in Mortal Kombat 11 is a realism mode with X-rays, where every time an X-ray happens for the rest of the fight, that person's limb is just ragdoll.
There you go.
So like you break someone's neck and their arm, and their head and arm are just flopping around the rest of the fight, but they can still do all the moves and stuff.
They can still do some fight, you know, like what a comeback. His leg and arm.
It's the early access fighting game. Is what it is.
If you broke their head first and their head's like all like physics
just rolling
maybe
around,
your controls would be reversed.
That would be so big on you, man. The Surgeon Simulator. The entire thing would just take off again with Mortal Kombat 11. Shit.
As a kid, and this is maybe a little disturbing, I always thought it would be fun to come up with the fatalities, right? To be like in the boardroom and be like, all right, this is my idea, and just put out the sickest shit, you know?
It sounds like the funnest job ever, you know?
Doesn't that sound like the most fun job ever? It really does. It's like that and mattress testing. It's like, right.
You know what's hilarious, hello? You may have just nailed Mortal Kombat 11's brand new game revolutionizing system where you make the fatalities. They come up with a system where when you do the fatality, it brings up like a slow motion interface, and you get to program in your little unique.
Oh, they did that.
You decide what happens.
They've already done it?
Mortal Kombat already did it. Yeah.
Really?
Like, it was either Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance or one of the PlayStation 2 Mortal Kombats, which is like greatly like overseen. Like people forget those games exist, but there was one where you can make a fatality where you do like an entrance fatality part, and then you can choose to like rip their arm off. or rip off their head or cut off their leg.
What did that do?
It was so jank and hilariously bad that if you actually go back and watch it now, it's just hilarious.
Oh, more confirmation that our ideas are shit.
I know, right? Or already done.
I had this idea like a choose your own adventure fatality, like kind of like a, hey, do you want to do this? Quickly input, okay, you've done this now. Do you want to do that? Kind of.
Would you like to rip his spine out or dislocate his shoulder?
Yeah.
There's like a guy standing next to him.
Would be best.
Let me know. It'd be good. One of the other things too that this has probably been talked to death, but I think it's an interesting conversation with another new release of Street Fighter. Why have they always never done a good tutorial? Why has there never been like you see like one of the biggest like the spin-offs of a new fighting game release is all the YouTubers say, "Oh, we get to make some new tutorials." Like James Chen gets to be like, "Oh, let's fucking release all this frame data, blah blah blah." Like, why is that not just in the game already?
For some reason, like Capcom fighting games have always relied on the community to provide like information about their games. Like the funniest thing is that in Street Fighter V, there's a new mechanic called the V trigger, where your character like activates a state where things become enhanced in some way. And from what I understand, and I don't know because I know what they all do and I've known for quite some time, in the game, I don't think there's a description for everybody's V trigger and what it even does. So people just kind of have to pop it and use it and figure it out, or go to YouTube and look up a tutorial. And there's some great official tutorials that Capcom is putting out for characters in Street Fighter V right now.
On YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube, on their main Street Fighter channel. And they're really well edited and they look fantastic and they're nowhere to be found in the game. And the game has this super bare bones early tutorial. And back to what you were saying, it really comes down to time. Like figuring out a really good tutorial is a difficult thing for fighting games, especially in how to present it. And very few games have actually done it. Like Guilty Gear Xrd has a pretty damn good tutorial. It's not entirely entertaining because Guilty Gear has a ton of system mechanics, and by the end you're going to forget 2 or 3. By the time it's over, Killer Instinct has a pretty decent one. Dead or Alive has a pretty decent one. But when it comes to some games, and especially Street Fighter, like it's always been a game that has existed in arcades first, and then came to consoles in some way, so they never added a tutorial. But 5 doesn't have an arcade version, and there's still like super bare bones, very limited tutorial. There's something at the very beginning which is actually forced on you guys, and if you guys like JP,
it's fucking stupid. You boot up the game, you can't even go to the fucking option menu. You're like, here's the tutorial. And I'm just I don't want to play at 1600 by 1080. Can we just please get to the options?
Dude, when I saw that first, they actually put that in the beta, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is the first part of probably a 10-part tutorial. Like, that is going to teach you how to play the game, where the tutorial is actually a game, which is awesome. Like, my true dream is that eventually a fighting game is going to get enough development time, and the developers will have enough time to figure out how to make the tutorial an actual part of the game itself, where just like in Mario Brothers, where you got to figure out how to run and then jump longer and faster and harder, where a fighting game is going to teach you how to like anti-air somebody or uppercut them if they're jumping at you too much, and the AI would do this thing where it's like, Ken's like, hey, who are you, man? That guy's jumping and kick you in the face. Don't be an idiot. And you have to uppercut him.
It would be amazing. Like it sounds stupid, but as a casual player, like I would even say that if you know what a Hadouken, if you know the input for a fucking Hadouken, you're not a casual player. You're not the person that picks this up. It's like, well, how do I walk forward? Like, how do I
know how to do that.
Right. You're not the mainstream casual player. You have to, a lot of people forget about that.
Like casual players, I'm going to use an example here. Like casual players are the guys that grab a fighting game and they grab another friend and they start
they mash,
really hard and as hard as they can. That is a casual player, and they just want to see neat things happen.
And to be honest,
my wife beats me every time we play.
That's the most.
To be honest, it's probably why they make a lot of the things activatable by pushing 2 buttons together, because it makes the mashers able to see cool shit.
Yes, absolutely, and that's important. It's really important that you need people to feel like they're doing something neat in a fighting game, because it's one of the most, it can be a more difficult game genre to get into, but it's no more difficult than Dota, League of Legends, StarCraft. It's no more difficult.
And those things have, like with StarCraft, I feel like they kind of nail it in the sense that you learn through the single player. The single player Each level kind of introduces something small, new unit.
Exactly.
They tell you what the unit is. The mission's based around that unit. In Street Fighter, it's like, all right, you're going to fight this guy. He's going to say some words about something and Shadaloo, and then the fight's over and you're going to move on.
And most of the budget for those games is like StarCraft, for example, is in the single player, like a huge amount of budget through cutscenes and development, and they add on and pretty much add the multiplayer around it. Same thing for Call of Duty, where a lot of the maps in older Call of Duties were pretty much like taken from single player elements. And I really wish fighting games would get a development like that, where the single player was super important and focused, and it wasn't just kind of this thing that they just add a couple of cutscenes for and it's over. So
mashers, fuck button mashers so much, man. Like, I remember being like 15 or 16. I live in Florida, and we would go to like Disney or Busch Gardens or something, and there's like arcades there. I remember this 8-year-old kid came up and put in a quarter, and he asked his mom right in front of me, "Can I get 25, 50 cents for this machine?" Puts in 50 cents. Fucking picks Eddie Gordo and kicks the shit out of me.
Dude. Yeah, dude, Eddie Gordo. Oh yeah.
And I remember, and I was really into it, man. I played it at home, but then when you get on the arcade, it's different, right? You gotta figure out what kick is what kick and what punch is what punch. This little kid walks up. I've like put time into this. This fucking kid, man.
I had a moment where I thought I was pretty good at Tekken. Like, I think it was Tekken Tag 1, and I literally had a friend be like, "Think you're good at Tekken?" And he literally picks up the controller, we start the round, and he's staring at my face like it's right there. And I'm looking at the screen and he's not, and he just takes his PlayStation controller and starts tapping X and O, which are left kick and right kick in Tekken with Eddie.
He just
and
hops back and forth, yeah.
And I'm like, what? I could not stop it. It is, don't worry, that's not just you. That's me too.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. He would just look like he'd been playing.
That was in Tekken Tag. My brother worked at GameStop, so I had like an unlimited lifetime card to just play whatever. So I played Tekken Tag. Anytime someone would come up and fucking pick Eddie, I just be like, I'm done. I'm gonna go.
Everyone hates Eddie.
Go ahead and play whatever. I'll play my Hwang Lee bullshit after you're done. Just finish whatever you're gonna do. Beat the game. Let me move on.
The funniest part about it is that fighting games are still associated in the casual aspect, which is a very large amount of people. They call them button mashers. Like, the latest button masher that came out is Street Fighter V, and people will actually describe fighting games as button mashers because that's the casual like visual identity. You remember them in arcades from way back in the day. You remember people jamming and slapping buttons with almost no regard to what they can do or what is happening.
It's the audio trigger of like when you slap
and that's
a button.
What it is. It's an audio trigger. So people don't associate, like the common player, when they even see Evo, they don't associate the intense amount of training, skill, preparation, and knowledge it takes for a fighting game that it actually requires, because they just associate with button masher and they just see whoever's mashing buttons harder. Yeah. Like that is still a common misconception, and that literally comes from something like its arcade roots, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And it's no argument that if you see somebody that's really good at like League of Legends, Dota, StarCraft, what the hell is going on?
You can recognize.
His camera is going to 90 different places. I have no idea what's going on in this game. All I see is that and little dudes running around smacking each other, and then a person wins. And I'm like, somebody got excited. Woo, we're good.
Right. With fighting games, you don't see that because it's all mental.
You don't see that because it's all like a mind game. And it's because fighting games have that association with being a button masher and these other competitive games that are much bigger. They look more technical, and when you see somebody on a keyboard that's very smart, like that person's smart, he knows what he's doing, like smacking keys really fast. See somebody on a joystick smacking buttons, you don't get as much respect for them. I think that's a very long going rooted thing that fighting games have had, which is why they don't have the same amount of kind of initial esports pull that other games do.
Yeah.
This is crazy. I love hearing this, man. This is crazy. It just opens. It's just I don't think about it very often. But
I will say, hello. Yesterday, me and Strippin, we played Street Fighter V, and I tried to play it last week, but the whole server issue thing was so fucking bad that I just didn't even try. But it's a little rough. It was working for the most part yesterday afternoon. We played for like 5 or 6 hours, and like the first couple of games compared to the last couple of games, like there were definitive moments within that 5 to 6 hour period where like I was actually like throw countering, and I was like hitting that stuff, and I was like, I've never hit this before, but just because I'm playing with my friend and we're like, hey, how'd you do that? Like, what did you do to counter? Like that conversation happens, and I've never had that happen before. So if you have
the greatest feeling ever,
it's fucking amazing. Like, And even when I would just like hit confirm into a fucking ultra or something like that, that is also something that I've never had done before. And when I was doing it yesterday, I was like, this is amazing.
You know
Discovering. Go ahead, Ella.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, you know what I find though is when you have a friend that you sit down for that amount of time with, that becomes the case. Like,
Absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
5 or 6 hours with you. But here's the thing, and then like you take everything you learned against him specifically and take it to another person, and it's a completely different
Right,
game.
because every person's different. And we learned that yesterday.
I get that. Yeah.
We
What
learned
you
that
guys are
yesterday.
talking about is like one of the most critical aspects of fighting games, and this is the thing that I try to tell people when some people ask like, what can I do to be good with this character, or how do I learn this game? And they're very broad questions usually that don't involve anything about like knowledge. And the easiest answer is that find somebody that's right around your skill level. If you're completely new, find another dude that's completely new and play against them a whole bunch. You'll eventually learn that he keeps throwing me all the time. Maybe if I press my throw at the same time, you can't throw me anymore.
Right. He would wake up, throw me, and I was like, this fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Get so
And
upset.
then you actually find a counter for it, and that feels really good. And it's also a really good feeling when you start jumping at the opponent and he starts uppercutting you every time you do it, and you're
Right.
like, man, I got to think about what I got to do now.
That's
And
the other
it's
thing too. I would
moments
mix
like
it
that.
up. Like I would always use the fucking the sweep on Ryu, like
Mm-hmm.
nonstop. And eventually he was like, "All right, I'm gonna start blocking low because fuck you. Like I'm tired of
Yeah.
this shit." And then
He
like the
blocks
one,
the zone sweep. Yep.
yeah, the one time that I mixed it up, he was like, "Oh, what the? You actually fucking like changed what you were doing. That was incredible." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I did," because I understood that you were just blocking nonstop.
That's
So like those
literally,
little
that's-
triggers are so good.
That's entry level, high level fighting game stuff, where you don't have a lot of knowledge of what's going on and you're kind of just playing the opponent and just figuring each other out. That is, I think, why fighting games develop this camaraderie that is a lot different than almost any other competitive genre, in my opinion. Like for some reason, if you teach somebody a fighting game, and it's not for some reason, it's a really good reason because it's the genre, that you would like change somebody. Like they are like so appreciative, and it like changes the way they think about like playing video games in some way, because you develop this element of camaraderie that's different than most other genres. And I think that's something that's really unique to fighting games. Like I really love that about it. It's changed my life, and I feel like it's changed a lot of people's lives if they actually try to sit down and learn how to play it, or just enjoy watching it. It's something, there's just something about it.
Right?
I
Yeah, I agree.
It's not unlike it would be if you were to spar with somebody in real life, I bet.
Yeah, no, it's a similar thing.
It probably really isn't that much different. Actually, I was talking to JP about this earlier. Like I used to do MMA in my early 20s, and my brothers did. You do. I get that camaraderie through combat kind of thing, and I've never really associated it with a video game, but it makes total sense. I mean,
Because the mental aspect of it is still there. It's the
Exactly.
physical aspect technically goes away.
Yeah, the physical aspect, but the mental aspect is completely the same. You're looking at what your opponent's doing. You're trying to counter it. You're trying to understand their way of thinking, how they're attacking. It's a chess game, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that in a fighting game, you get like super salty if you lose, and if you lose in a real fight, you get your ass beat.
Yeah, so just play fighting games instead, guys.
Well, I mean, you're a
bit safer.
Kick each other's ass, but I get what you're saying.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
It's a lot safer,
The other big thing that happened yesterday, and I was aware, like I've watched every Evo ever since they've been like broadcast on to a large audience on Twitch, and I'll even watch a lot of the smaller events as well. But I knew that like the top fighting game players were obviously very good, and they're very mental, but I didn't understand. It would take me like 3 to 4 games to understand what Strippin was doing yesterday and be able to counter that. These guys are doing it in the first 2 or 3 attacks in a single round. Like that's how fast they're thinking. And I was just like, that's actually fucking mind blowing that they can read an opponent that quick and adjust on the fly to what's going on.
There's a reason why I've been telling the Street Fighter guys this, like the developers and stuff like that. I've been really harking on them to add a 2 out of 3, like in ranked matches, because the 2 out of 3, which essentially like one game is, you have to win 2 rounds.
Right.
And the idea is that you have a set. So you have to win 2 games out of 3, because what happens in a fighting game is the first game is all knowledge. Like whoever wins that, how are you going to apply how he won and completely change your strategy? Like every time I threw a fireball, he jumped over the fireball and kicked me. I will not let that happen again. Let's see if he changes the strategy. And then you win. Going into the 3rd round, you have countered his strategy. Is this guy going to be able to return back and
change
change
it up? Yeah.
entirely? for the third game. And the only fighting game that currently does that is Killer Instinct. And it's incredible how many games I will lose. The first game, I would get destroyed and then win 2 straight because I was like, I took all the damage this way. I'm just not going to let that happen anymore.
Right.
So I really hope Street Fighter V does get that eventually because 2 out of 3 is one of the greatest things for online fighting games, especially in.
I was watching Arturo Sanchez last night do that. He was playing Dulcim. I think he got up to like rank 3 in the world, which he's
pretty much the best Dulcim in the world.
Another awesome thing that they do in this game in ranked play, there's just a number. You are this number in the world, and Arturo got up to number 3 in the entire fucking world last night. He's really, really, really fucking good, and it was really cool watching him climb that. But as you were saying, like. He would play a Bison. I forget the names exactly of who he was playing, but they were well-known players. He would play a Bison, get rushed down in the first round, and then in round 2, he was, like you were just saying, he would completely alter what he was doing, and then it was a little bit easier. And then round 3, he would do that to them. Yeah. And so they were immediately like flip-flopping back and forth, and they were reading him so quick that I was just like, this is incredible. Like, I understand so much more just because I played 5 or 6 hours today and understand at the most basest level in the world what's really going on here.
You understand the flip-flop, like how it's back and forth between. And the craziest thing is that in Japan, they don't even, like for most huge tournaments they've had in the past, they don't even get 2 out of 3. They get like 1 game.
Right.
So like Japanese play is like crazy with certain older fighting games like Capcom vs. SNK 2 and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike and old Tekkens and stuff because they don't have a lot of time to figure out the opposition. They just got to do it. And they have to know how they play and figure it out within moments. And it's kind of crazy. Just by somebody walking back and forward, people know what you're going to do next. Like that is crazy to me. Like just how much they can pick up on stuff.
For sure. In case people wanted to watch the stream, it's twitch.tv/NYC Furby, Furby for Arturo.
Yeah, that's for Arturo.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of, Justin Wong was streaming last night. There's Tampa Bison. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Tampa Bison, I think, was streaming from his PS4. I think he's the top Bison player in the world right now.
Him and Arturo were doing a bunch of, they kept meeting each other last night in the ladder. It was awesome to watch.
Street Fighter V is very interesting right now because it's one of the first fighting games that is from Japan that wasn't in Japan first. So the Japanese competition doesn't have like 6 months to a year in advance to get better than everybody else. So right now it's kind of crazy. It's one of the first Capcom games to do that, especially big competitive ones where a lot of the American players appear to be a lot better than the Japanese players when they do stream. It's been kind of weird. Like it's a huge temperature change for how fighting games have always been where the Japanese kind of dominate very early on.
Right. What is the first big event for Street Fighter V? Like the first, if there's an equivalent of a major in other esports.
I think the Capcom Pro Tour is actually starting fairly soon, and that takes place at a variety of majors that go across like the entirety of the U.S. and across the world.
Right.
So if you guys want to find out for Street Fighter V, check out like the Capcom Pro Tour, and you'll see which tournament is going to be holding the first official event.
I'll definitely. I just want to see. After yesterday, I've got that itch. I feel like it's going to result in me going online and playing it and getting really fucking upset and be like, I'm done. I'm done getting fucking smashed. We'll just move on.
Telling people that you're gonna go online and you're gonna lose a lot is a hard thing to invest in the fighting game. And that's what I have to tell people is that you have to be comfortable with losing. You have to have a certain amount of character that is like, I'm okay with getting my ass beat as long as I'm getting better.
Right.
That's anything. That's
kind of anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of anything. You gotta have a.
For sure. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about in the fighting game world is, Elo and Co, have you guys heard of a game called Rising Thunder? Are you familiar with that game?
I'm not. So,
and Max, you could probably do a better job describing it, but Rising Thunder is basically, I want to say it's kind of like a MOBA fighting game where you have one button that does your special moves, right? You hit one button and it does your special move. And then that move is on a timer. And then when a timer's up, you can use that move again. And is it 3 moves or how many moves per?
I think you can assign 3 moves. So you can choose a character and then you can actually give them moves. Like I want a fireball or an uppercut. And you can actually choose which one or take both in some situations. This essentially is a game that was developed by the Cannon brothers and Seth Killian, who used to be like the resident like Street Fighter head guy at Capcom. And he was a huge reason why Street Fighter 4 is the way it is today. And the Cannon brothers actually founded Evo with other people. and they made the netcode, the rollback netcode that was made for fighting games that is used today to actually simulate a rollback situation where within like milliseconds the game predicts like thousands of different things that can happen and then rolls back to what actually happened within literally like less than a frame. They developed that netcode back in the early 2000s so that fighting games can run well, and they made this game called Rising Thunder where they took out the executional barrier of fighting games. And the only issue with the game is that it is a free to play game, which is great for many. It's got a limited roster right now, and it's still like in an early state. And if it has like this big official release where there's a lot of stuff, I think the game's going to be really cool. I played it once. I didn't have a character that I was super attached to, but it's like you don't have to do special moves. You don't have to do fireballs or charging or anything. They're all assigned to a button. And if you do that button, you can actually get combos.
That doesn't seem like an oversimplification.
It is. Well, it is an oversimplification because it is essentially taking fighting games down to the non-executional barrier, which is all mind games. So if somebody starts jumping at you like crazy, you don't have to do like an uppercut motion. You just press a button to anti-air them. So that forces somebody to stay on the ground and walk towards you instead of jumping at you. So
is that something that appeals to someone with as much experience as you, though, or does that seem like a step in the wrong direction?
The biggest appeal for me in fighting games, honestly, is the characters, like having cool characters. And this game has like pretty cool characters, and I'm just kind of like waiting for stuff. I want to customize things, which is why I didn't continue playing it. But for some, this is actually an issue with Street Fighter V, which is very funny. Some people like the executional barrier because that distinguishes like a really good player from like a new player really fast. And in something like Rising Thunder, it's still super apparent if somebody knows how to play the game, even if you have access to all the moves and they're assigned to one button. Super apparent if a guy is very good at fighting games because
he understands the mechanics, right?
Combos aren't the things that, it's the mechanics, and combos aren't what win fighting games. Like getting to the combo, landing the combo is what actually is the thing that takes the most skill. And the executional barrier that comes after, like you can always do an easy combo to get good damage, but if you consistently get that combo, then you're the much better player. You know what I mean? So all Rising Thunder does is just give everyone access to combos and special moves at any point. It's just the movement is the same. It's got dashing, jumping, stuff like that. So this is actually very similar to Street Fighter V, where they made combos super easy in Street Fighter V. And in comparison to other Street Fighter games, they are literally technically like 3 times easier to pull off combos in the new Street Fighter. So all fighting games are kind of doing this where they want to make the game more accessible because in all honesty, the executional barrier isn't that important. To some people it is, but in my opinion, like I like difficult stuff in fighting games sometimes because you don't see it all the time. That's the most important part. It's like, wow, this guy just pulled off this ridiculous effing thing that I've never seen before. And in newer, that's the only downside of it. You might not see that a lot because you kind of discover the technical stuff pretty quickly because the combos are easier to do.
Yeah, it seemed like that to me. Like I can see why you wouldn't hate this because at its core, everything you've said so far, this is fighting games brought down base level.
Yeah. Simmered down now.
The mind games.
The mind games are still there, which is kind of what the whole thing is about, right? Really, once
being in somebody's head is what fighting games are all about. Like, and it's one of the reasons why I like Killer Instinct very early on is because KI does a similar thing where the executional barrier for combos is like combos are easy in KI. You can get a 60 to 70% damage combo on somebody. But since there's a breaker system, it's a two-way approach where if someone chooses to break that combo at any point, they just have to choose one of 3 options. If they guess, then you're going to consistently guess right, but you're also going to consistently guess wrong. And if you guess wrong, you lose 60% health. But there's this issue where if you know that they're going to make that guess, you know that they're going to break your combo there, you can literally do what's called a counter breaker and catch them. So there's moments in Killer Instinct where it's like, how did he know I was going to break that? Like, how did he? And he literally catches it. And it's once that mechanic was introduced, there was an element of mind games in KI that are very surface level, where it's like we want to be very obvious that these players are playing each other like up here and not as much like right here on all this stuff. So many fighting games are going in that direction right now.
Do you find that young people do really well with this game? Like, do they have any professional players that are like, mid 30s, 40s, something like that? Somebody's been around for a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right.
Like yeah, a lot of the guys that are streaming on Twitch, like around my age, so that's early 50s. They're dudes that have been around for a very long time. Like they grew up and played in arcades competitively in the early 2000s and late 90s and stuff. So they've been around for quite some time. And those guys are still like technically the best, but there are some still like like teenage age players that are super freaking good that just got into the game. Like the current guy that's Resident King World Champion Master Rico at Killer Instinct technically is what they consider an 09er because he started in Street Fighter 4.
Is that Rico Suave?
That's Rico Suave.
Okay, yeah.
And he told me he started in Street Fighter 4. He's like, I'm an 09er, which is usually a like a derogative term. So, and it's funny is now if you're an 09er now, you're actually a veteran. And he started in that game, and he's just through the experience he's had in that game, he went on and became literally the best at another fighting game with the experience he got from one. So
yeah, it's really
definitely there.
There's a difference, right, between a game like this maybe and let's say League of Legends or an FPS game where there might be more Twitch reactions. And this, it seems like a lot of memorization and mental game, you know? So,
yeah.
I know there's a
muscle memory.
Yeah.
Muscle memory is a huge one.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I forget what they call it. They call it like SPM or something that like commands per second in like.
Oh, APM. Yeah.
Yeah.
APM.
Actions per minute. Yeah.
And Street Fighter isn't as much about the actions per minute because sometimes if you're not doing anything, that can be more powerful than pressing as many buttons as possible.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's what it seemed like to me. It came across that way. I just wanted to know if I was.
It's actually a good. There's no like statistic except winning or losing in Street Fighter.
No, there is some stuff. Like if you
Really?
actually go into what you're looking on screen, like the Capcom Fighters Network, and you actually go into your settings, it'll tell you some pretty unique stats that I think they are going to
Really?
expand on. And a lot of fighting games do that now, where they actually tell you like how much damage you took, and it would be great if they told you how many times like they kicked you in the head through jump-ins and how many fireballs you ate.
How many times you jumped in, stuff like that.
How many times where'd you get your damage from? Like those are all really good. You can learn this stuff just by watching your own replays, but very clearly going out there and being like, yo, damn, you got all your damage from jumping in and kicking people in the head. Good on you, but look out.
Sure. Yeah. Interesting. What for you would you say is one of the biggest hurdles for Street Fighter V moving forward? Like, what's the one thing you're worried about most besides, I know you did your video on having like the casual audience there because it was such a disastrous launch last week. But besides that, what's the one thing that you're most worried about? And also on the flip side, also most excited about.
No, most excited about is that there's potentially going to be a lot of returning characters that haven't been in Street Fighter games for a very long time that I'm very excited about. I've always been very excited that I can finally play a modern age Street Fighter game online and it doesn't run like total butt. Street Fighter 4 was notorious, not very good online. And same thing with Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And I was very excited about that. Net play and characters are what get me the most excited. The thing I'm worried about is that fighting games get a huge amount of their sales in the first month and a half. And fighting games almost sell entirely on word of mouth. Like getting people to invest in this stuff is actually pretty difficult. And right now, Street Fighter V's biggest focus is just the online, like playing people. There's not a lot for others right now. You're gonna have to wait till March until there is going to be more content, and that's a difficult thing if you don't have a lot of really good initial sales. I'm a little worried because they're predicting 2 million units sold, and I think the game might have to drop in price pretty fast. And I specifically want sales because I want more Capcom fighting games that aren't Street Fighter. Like I like the Street Fighter series a ton, but Capcom can make some ridiculously awesome things, and they've done so in the past. So like I said, I might like to see other things that aren't directly this genre, but I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about its health in that regard. The hardcore guys are super happy because, well, for the most part, the servers are kind of working now. Some things are still pretty busted, and the fighting is great. Playing people and having good matches online and have it run well is fantastic. And that's what everyone has said, but its health in the long run is what I'm a little worried about.
Gotcha.
So with Street Fighter, most of the time from the past games that I played from a fighting perspective, the story has been kind of part of the game. It's been integral. Is there any reason that that Street Fighter V just released without a story? Was it rushed? Was it behind schedule? Like, what happened?
I think the common thing is that they're trying to hit the Capcom Pro Tour, where they don't want to like start the Capcom Pro Tour without people that don't know how to like play the game. Ko, you got a cat on your right behind you. Don't look. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That'll get your cat. The story mode like is coming like down the line in June, and everyone says the game should have come out in June. It should have come out as a full package at that point, and all this bad stigma between the user reviews and everything would have been totally fine. And I agree. Like I do agree that releasing it early, and they've always released big Capcom fighting games in February. Like that's the time they release them because they've had success in the past, and they were trying to hit that date, and they were trying to hit the Capcom Pro Tour so that people can get their hands on the game to get into the esports. Like that's the huge focus of this game, and it seems super focused around the esports element. They've said a lot that the game is focused around casuals, but it isn't showing yet. So yeah, that's pretty much why.
This might be a little bit inside baseball type question. You might not be able to answer it, but how much was Sony involved in terms of just funding this, and how much are they really pushing for that pro scene on a PS4 only, PS4 and PC title? Like,
I think a huge amount. Like, I think almost the very large portion of the budget for this game was gifted by Sony, and I think that because of that, it doesn't seem to have like the usual budget of a Street Fighter game, because Capcom, I don't know if you guys know, but Capcom's been in a very finicky position financially for the past couple of years.
Right, they keep remaking everything rather than just
they're remaking stuff, and they don't really make games. I can't tell you after Street Fighter is out, they made a video of a guy saying we're gonna remake Resident Evil 2, and it was the sickest thing ever. But there was literally a logo, and that was it. It was like they just came out of a room and filmed the video where there's like, we do it, we're gonna do it, and that was all the guy said, is that we're remaking it. And it was in the wake of Final Fantasy VII's remake announcement.
So it kind of got
that's like the only game I think Capcom has like after Street Fighter, and then outside of like Japan, where Monster Hunter is insanely successful and that pretty much makes or breaks the company. Like Monster Hunter is so big in Japan, it's nuts. And if Capcom didn't have that, I don't know where they would be today without it. But it doesn't do big elsewhere, and I really don't know many other games that are going to be shown at E3. They have to like surprise us because
they're doing that. Don't they have Deep Down? They're Dark Souls or something like that,
dude. Yeah, in that game,
but it's been they haven't said anything about it in the past year.
Hiatus for life, like it looked super impressive, like very early graphic tech demo PlayStation 4 game, and it's just missing. And I feel that I think their graphics engine, like whatever graphics engine they were trying to do, similar thing that happened to Square Enix, like their graphics engine screwed them over, and they invested a ton of money into it. For some reason, Japanese developers feel that they have to like reinvent the wheel when they do games nowadays. We're gonna remake a whole new engine for our game, and we're gonna sell the engine. It's gonna be amazing, and then the engine doesn't work, and it's even worse on games now than it usually is. So that's happened both with Square and Capcom now. So I don't know.
I mean, they put so much money into Lost Planet 1, 2, and there was a third one, I think, of those two. Like in the
third one was outsourced. It wasn't done by Capcom.
Okay, yeah. And they just unfortunately didn't do that well, as from what I can remember in the 360 era. So I don't know. It sucks that they don't have that much money though, because like Street Fighter 5 is such an like in the history of video games, Street Fighter 5 is up there and like being one of the most important. Or Street Fighter, I mean, is being up there and being one of the most important for sure. So.
Oh yeah,
no, I agree.
A lot of us grew up with. I know I did.
Oh yeah, I remember Street Fighter 2 when it came out on the. Was it the Neo Geo that was like $700 when it first came out?
Oh yeah, they actually had like arcade boards.
Yeah,
that you would
that was the system that came with Bonk, right?
No, that was TurboGrafx.
TurboGrafx. Okay, that's what it was. That's what I
remember that one.
Yeah, I remember it because like
Bonk was our flagship character.
Yeah, my brother's friend got one, and he got Bonk, and he got Street Fighter the Hyper Edition or whatever the fuck it was called, whatever adjective they went with that year.
Super Hyper Turbo 2, I think it was.
Something like that. I don't remember. But I was like, this is the best thing ever. We got to get one of these. And we looked at the price tag, and it was like some astronomical like $1,000 console back then. We were like, well, we're never gonna play that game again. So,
The value of games is hilarious. Like if you bought an old Capcom or like Killer Instinct or something on the Super Nintendo back in the day, those games debuted in the mid 90s, and I swear to God, I looked up like the Toys R Us ads, and they would stay at this price for a long time, $75.
yeah.
In 19, I'm pretty sure in like 1994, 1995, that was like $400. Maybe not that much, but in comparison to like nowadays, like the value to how much a game costs to how much it used to cost, like you get so much more game for your money nowadays that it is ridiculous. So it's kind of interesting how you wonder how these games aren't having a ton when they initially come out and they need patches and stuff, because they kind of need to guarantee a little bit more sales, because you're putting out things that are $60 now, and games have kind of always come out at $60 back in the day, man. Like cartridge games were expensive, so and they were getting a lot more money for them, even though they were cheaper to make too. So it's a very interesting trend that has happened to the industry.
For
Can
sure.
I derail this conversation for just a second? Because I want to ask you something that's not so technical and information wise and all that stuff. You seem to be really into characters. Like you seem to love like these characters, man.
Yes.
Are there any spaces, like any, like Game of Thrones or any of these other things that you're interested in that you wish they would make a fighting game out of?
Oh man.
Sorry, it's kind of a loaded question because I'm sure you love a lot. You seem like a kind of guy that loves a lot of different
mostly like I kind of bring it back to like video game characters. When it comes to like, I've always wanted like a classic 2D like Square Enix fighting game, and they have it with Final Fantasy Dissidia, but I would just like a much more traditional instead of this characters flying around.
They squared up Dissidia where it's fucking complicated.
Actually learning how to play Dissidia takes a good like couple hours. I've always wanted that. I'm trying to think of like movies and things like that I'd be super excited about.
You don't have to answer right on the spot. Think about it.
Nothing comes to mind. My ultimate dream game, and it's technically been done once before, and it failed miserably. Is a Capcom versus Capcom game where it's just like forget Marvel, forget SNK, and even though I love Capcom versus SNK, just give me a Capcom game that is focused around all the Capcom universes. I want Mega Man versus Leon Kennedy. I want some ridiculous character, like I want a Monster Hunter guy versus a Lost Planet dude. I think that would be. There's such a rich history to Capcom legacy characters. They have some of the best characters in fighting game history, and you kind of get to see that in games like Marvel vs. Capcom. But it's split between the Marvel characters, and financially those games aren't sound anymore because you have to split the earnings with Marvel, and they're now a movie company. So this is why Marvel vs. Capcom doesn't make sense anymore. There's much a bigger value to Marvel now. So I don't know. I would really just love to see like a Capcom fighting game just focus around its own universe and make like 36 characters that are just ridiculous from 1985 all the way until 2015.
That'd be super cool. I want like Harry Potter versus Star Wars or something. I don't know. Like
that's a YouTube video, I'm pretty sure.
Worlds together and just Marvel versus Capcom, same thing. Let's just throw all these characters together. Whatever. It's not going to happen, but
it's true. It's true.
Fallout 4 versus Skyrim, the fighting game.
Oh my god! Hey, well,
I want Fallout versus Witcher.
At least,
right.
Have terrible voice acting. So, sorry, shots.
You were talking about price drops. Right now on Amazon, you can actually get Street Fighter V for $10 off. So it's already kind of happening. I don't know if that's an Amazon only sale or what, like where that's being dictated to be sold.
I've heard that you can get it on like CD keys, or I don't want to promote the site, but some site sells keys, and it's like $35.
I'm sure you can get a PC key for super cheap. That's definitely true.
There's always G2A, everyone.
or Green Man Key, whatever you want to use. Whatever you want to use. For people that are looking to get into Street Fighter V, would you say wait, or would you say pick it up now?
If you want to fight people, pick it up now. The servers are getting better every day. The matchmaking is getting quicker every day. The connections are slowly getting better too. Not quite as good as the original betas because there's way more people now.
Yeah.
But they're figuring it out. If you're interested in like learning a Street Fighter game, now is the best time because if you try to jump into a fighting game, 3 to 6 months down the road, people are going to be pretty good.
That's what happened to
And
me with Ultra SF4. I tried to jump
dude.
in. And
yeah, like good luck getting good at. Even though Ultra is a new version of Street Fighter 4, it's still Street Fighter
it didn't
4.
matter.
Core.
Everyone
It
was
didn't-
so much better at that game. I got fucking shit on. It's like, well,
That's very rough. And I've tried to get into certain fighting games that have been out for a very long time. And even as a player that plays a whole bunch of them, I've been playing them for 20 years. It's rough. You have to have something that you really attach to in order to make that investment. So now is the best time because the game's been out for less than 2 weeks and there's still a whole bunch of new players online. The most important thing is that you find players that are around your skill level. So for you guys out there that might actually give a shit, the first 2 weeks of a fighting game are super important.
Does the matchmaking do a good job of putting you against people that are of your level, would you say? Do you have enough experience with it? Yeah.
It tries. It's one of those situations where fighting games don't get the numbers as like really big competitive games in Call of Duties and stuff like that to actually fill the servers and actually populate matches. And I know this from like the Killer Instinct perspective of how they do matchmaking. The whole point is that there's a skill-based matchmaking of some kind where they want you to play against other people that are of similar skill level so you can have fun and not get blasted or blast somebody out of the water because on their end it's no fun for them. But because the population pool that it feeds to matchmake players isn't as big, sometimes you're sitting there searching and the game is like, well, everyone's playing and there's nobody else. Take this dude that's 3 leagues above you, have fun. And it's one of those situations where there hasn't been a situation where matchmaking gives you the option where limit me specifically on who I can play by league only or ranking only. And some do that somewhat, but it's like it's very archaic and it doesn't work that well. So I don't know. That's a really important thing, and I think they're gonna hit that home in future versions of SF5.
Gotcha. The other thing too is Street Fighter V the first one to actually have, like the silver, gold, platinum, those type of rankings, kind of like the League of Legends-ish type of rankings in it, or
like an actual ranking system.
Yeah. Was that in SF5 or any other fighting games?
They exist in many other fighting games throughout different regards. Like Virtua Fighter was one of the first ones with its like first Kyu, first Dan, fourth Dan, like type of stuff to Grandmaster. That's been around for quite some time.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Tell
me what you guys are playing right now because there's all this like punching and kicking shit going on.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Real quick, I just want to apologize. I'm so
fun.
quiet. My like windows are shaking. I have a tornado warning right now, so I'm.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, dude. And like we don't get tornado warnings here, so I'm just kind of sitting here like listening to stuff.
Well, let's. We're gonna take no, not a problem. Let's go ahead and take a break anyways because it's about that time. You can go see if you need to get down into your
fucking. The other side of my
bathroom.
house is still here.
Yeah, that shit's no fun. So we're gonna take a quick break. We'll come back and go into hour 2. Ko should be joining us. If not, we'll be able to fill the spot. Not a problem. But we'll be right back, guys. More Drop Frames coming up right after this. We'll see you guys in about 5 minutes. See you then.